Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Faculty Factory podcast. Today's episode of the Faculty Factory is a best of show that includes highlights from past interviews on this podcast about navigating difficult conversations. Today's best of show features interviews with the following guests: Dr. Charles Charlie Irvin, Dr. Dave Usum, and Dr. Jennifer Haythornwaite.
So the first tip that I got is from the HR folks was suspend judgment and assume good intent. So, you take somebody who you may know about or they have a rep and you just say, okay, as I go into this thing, trying to learn more, I have to assume good intent and I've got to suspend judgment and I've got to take whatever my feelings about this person are and leave them at the door. And that's hard to do. But you have to try very hard to be objective and fair. The next one is one that I use a fair bit. So I get somebody who's acting up and I'll sit them down. This could be a cup of coffee kind of a conversation, or it could be something more official. And you just say, I'm curious, why, I've been hearing reports that you act in a certain way, and I'm just curious, why? Why is it? Because that doesn't seem to be how you are. I mean, you're a really good scholar, you're a great clinician, and I'm just sort of curious, and I have to tell you, I'm very concerned for you. So you approach things with curiosity and concern, rather than start yelling at the person or, leaning into them. Just help me understand this. Help me understand why you feel you have to, do the X, Y, and Z. So that was. I think that's a nice approach to kind of start the conversation, and let the person know that you actually are, because we are concerned for our colleagues, and they have virtues that we want to preserve, and just want to get rid of the bad bits. I always get both sides of the story. I mean, I've run a big clinical lab. I've run a research lab, and that's one that you learn a long time, and that's just get both sides of the story. You're only getting one side of the story. You really have to, and particularly when you get into the serious stuff. Of course, when you get into serious stuff, you really want to handle that, and that really gets into one of my other ones, and that is consult and inform HR and general counsel early regarding questionable situations. So, we all know, we've all had enough training as faculty affairs people. We know when the situation is really bad. When we're talking about something that's illegal, like sexual harassment, we're talking about something serious like harassment. We're talking about, any really, really inappropriate behavior that's really horrible. And it may affect a person mentally or, clinically, the patients. And that's usually fairly clear, at least in my mind. Typically it is. And so at that point, I don't even worry about it. I just go right to HR. And I've developed close working relationship with HR here in the dean's office, which handles the college, and then a great working relationship with the HR person over at the hospital.
The concept with difficult conversations in this Harvard negotiation project is that whenever you're in a difficult conversation about a conflict that you're having with somebody, there's really three levels of conversation. There's kind of the fact level, which is what they call the what happened level, which is just getting the facts right so that you're on a level playing field as far as what exactly happened between you and this person that you're in conflict with. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in just a moment. The second level is the emotions, and that is, we all have little triggers of things that we get, sort of hot under the collar about. And then once we get emotional, sometimes, our logic will sometimes fly away, or we may say things that are we don't really feel deeply or mistakenly say.
Activate the lizard brain.
Level, There you go. The hippocampal, ambush where you're just, spouting out stuff that you may or may not mean, and you certainly may regret saying.
Right.
But at the same time, we have to recognize that when you're in conflict or when you're having a difficult conversation, you're going to have an emotional response to what people say. And the third part, which I found the most fascinating part, is there is the identity level. And this gets to that part of it that we get so defensive about, because in this difficult conversation or this conflict that you're having with someone, it may get to the point where you start doubting yourself. And when you start doubting yourself, I don't remember all of them. Actually, you have more psychology background than I do. You get very protective of the id?
Yeah.
And you go into a highly defensive mode. And so when that conversation starts dipping into a point where you start feeling like someone's suggesting that you're not a good person,
or you're not smart, or you failed at something,
exactly, or you're not competent.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it elicits even a stronger reaction, and often you stop listening, you just get really, really defensive. And so in the description of these different levels, the Harvard Negotiation Project group talks about how to make it more effective at each of these levels in dealing with the facts and dealing with the emotions and in dealing with the identity issues. And I really think it's a good read.
Yeah. So go through this, because I'm always intrigued by that first element of what happened and talking about facts. And I'm putting my little fingers up, going air quotes around facts, because there's your facts and there's my facts, and then there's the facts in between. So walk us through this.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think that this concept and the book is even more relevant in our day and age, where we talk about alternative facts, or we talk about what is the actual reality, unfortunately. And this is an issue that the media is debating, et cetera. So, I mean, I think there's a difference between maybe 2 points of view or 2 observations of what happened versus that part that is actually what happened. What the difficult conversation theory is that you have to get to a point where the 2 people are describing what happened from a third person. We can agree about that this happened, this happened, this happened. Now, you may interpret it differently than I, but can we, as a third person narrator, describe what exactly transpired in this problem that you and I are having in this conflict? Uh-huh. And part of that conflict, and one of the, again, I have these certain takeaways from the book. One of the takeaways from the book that I thought was really important was the difference between intent and impact.
Right.
So we sometimes say, Kim hung up the phone on me, and I will impute an intent on behalf that, she was angry at me for what I last said, and that was her, and that's why she did it. I only saw that you hung up the phone on me, but I started thinking about, what was your intent, and that becomes sort of my fact, but it's not real, right? It's my interpretation of it.
And I would say that was not my intention at all. I did not intend to insult you. I did not intend to hurt your feelings. And then it's a recognition of the other, but that was the impact. So your intentions have to be taken in light of the impact on the other person. And that's what you and I learned in our mediation training, that a part of that exploration of what happened is describe your experience. What did you experience? How did you experience that situation, that event? How did you experience it? And you and I learned that you asking about the experience is important, because no one can ever negate or refute your experience.
I want everybody to just keep in mind, every time you say yes, you're saying no to something that you're already committed to. And every time you say no, you're saying yes to something you're already committed to.
Yeah.
And so that it just provides a little bit of a balance, that it's not just saying no to some new opportunity that comes along, because you've already got a full plate. Most of us do. And when you say yes to something that comes along, you're actually then saying, no, I'm not going to fulfill a commitment I've already made. Either to myself personally, I'm going to cut back on exercise, I'm going to see less of my family, or professionally, I'm not going to meet a deadline, or I'm not going to get something else done.
Yeah. But what about that, situation where as new faculty members, especially, you're afraid of turning down potential opportunities, and you certainly don't want to be the person who always says no. So how do I as a faculty member ascertain which are things I say yes to and which are things I say no to?
Well, and so that's the next point I wanted to talk about was how do you prioritize? How do you kind of, in your own sense, know which are the things that you really should be saving your time for and saying yes to, and which are the things that you should really think long and hard about and even say no to if they're not right. And so one of the things that we talk about with the faculty about as a way of trying to understand their own priorities is even thinking about sitting down for some period of time, maybe 15, 20 minutes, and thinking about what your mission statement would look like. And there are worksheets on the web that you can find that'll help you kind of just think about what is your work about? What is the priority for how you want to have your career unfold? And it doesn't have to be for the rest of your life. It can be for the next couple of years. What are the things that are important to you? And in most mission statements, there's also kind of a focus on what are your values. And values are very important in how we think about what's important to us with our work and our mission.
Well, the Thomas Kilmann conflict mode instrument is something, I believe it was developed in 1977 by Thomas and Kilmann, and it consists of basically a 30-question, 2-option answer survey that allows your style in conflict to be sort of graded, if you will, on 2 domains. One is your level of cooperativeness, and the other is your level of assertiveness. So if you can imagine sort of a chart with assertiveness on one side going from low to high and cooperativeness on the x-axis, if you will, going from low to high. Based on this 30-question simple survey, Kim, you can separate people into 5 different conflict styles. The style that is the highest in assertiveness but the least in cooperativeness is the competitor, the competitor style, being competitive. The style which is the least assertive as well as the least cooperative is the avoidant style. The style which has the highest level of cooperation as well as high assertiveness is the collaboration style. And the style which is low in assertiveness but high in cooperation is the accommodating style. And then there's this 5th style which is sort of centered in the middle, which has intermediate assertiveness and cooperativeness, and that's called compromising style. So based on this 30-question test, you get scored for how competitive you are, how collaborative you are, how accommodative you are, how avoidant you are, and and how much you compromise. And it's really quite fascinating because it really, I think, gives a really nice sort of self-assessment on what type of reaction you have to conflict.
I remember studying it when you and I did that mediation training, and I love the way I think about it are the animals that are associated with each of those styles. So the avoider is the turtle, the competition and competitor is the shark, the accommodator is the teddy bear, and I think the owl was the collaborator. And I can't remember the animal for the compromise. As you talk, I might remember it, or I'll try to dig around on my emails here to find it.
That's actually quite good. That's quite good because it does give you a little bit of a vivid graphic for the different styles.
Yeah.
Yes. So, people quite often ask, well, what style should I be? What do I aspire to? And this is sort of, almost like the Myers-Briggs, where we say, you shouldn't try to be an introvert or extrovert or a thinker or a feeler. It is what you are, but you should be able to move in different settings to different Myers-Briggs style and or to different Thomas Kilmann conflict mode styles. So, for example, in those issues that are really highly important to you, let's use the term mission-centric or value-centric, you're more likely to fight hard for them and therefore be more assertive. Now, you may be cooperating and assertive, in which case you're in the collaborative group, or you may be just very strong and not listening to other people and not cooperating, in which case you're in the competitive group. But those are the things that are really important to you. Sometimes there are conflicts. I gave the example of, I don't want to have to go out to Chinese food again, tonight with my wife because, we went there 3 nights ago, and she says, no, I really have a yen for Chinese, a yen for Japanese food, I guess, a yen for Chinese food. So then I might go into my accommodative mode. I mean, it's not really that important to me. I'm really into cooperation with my wife. It's an important relationship. So you might choose to be more on the accommodative side. Quite often in business dealings, in the end, a lot of the decision-making gets done by simply compromising. So, you make a bid on at the shopping bazaar, for buying it for $1, the shopkeeper says, no, this is my best work, and I want $3 for it, and you come to a compromise. Let's just split the difference, and we'll go to $2, and people may be happy with that. So depending upon the different circumstances, how important the issue is for you, you may go from one style to the other. I think the value of the Thomas Kilmann is that you can see what the other person is, their favored style is, and you can also assess, your favorite style and how to be more effective in that style.
Thanks for tuning in to Faculty Factory Podcast. The mission of the Faculty Factory is to build and support a community of leaders in faculty development who share tools, resources, wisdom, and encouragement in service to our faculty members, schools, and institutions. We encourage you to go to facultyfactory.org to find out more. Get in touch with me, ask me any questions. Maybe you want to be interviewed on the podcast. Thanks for tuning in to Faculty Factory Podcast. We'll see you next time. The Faculty Factory podcast and website is sponsored by the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine Office of Faculty. For more information, visit facultyfactory.org.